Hello, welcome back to All for United WFC with what we now 4 or 5 days. I don't even know what day it is this week, but anyway, we're close to WSL match day finally, and I said we'd have a couple of previews this week. Obviously, we did the one on Monday, specifically talking about United. This one's the broader WSL, and then tomorrow, just diving into all things Aston Villa as we kick off the season from a United point of view as well. Look at this little panel that I've assembled here. This is they're all going to sit here and try and tell us how United are going to win the league. That's what's going to happen over the course of the next 60 minutes. I was hopeful. It's not going to happen, I don't think. But we'll get into all that. We'll do a little table predictor. Obviously, we'll talk about the transfer window to start with. Who's made some surprise signings? Any surprises in there? Best signings, MVP, top scorer, all those kind of things that we did last year as well. So we'll get into all of that. Firstly, Meg, come over to yourself first. Firstly, thank you for coming back on. I'll just throw it over to you. Obviously, asking straight off from the bat from an Arsenal point of view for yourself. Good transfer window, bad transfer window, very, very busy.
Yeah, I think busy is the word you can use, but now, it's been brilliant. We've kind of filled every gap we've kind of needed to fill kind of thing. The attacking depth that we've got now is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how Jonas is going to rotate. It'll be interesting to see how he does that, but no, an absolutely incredible transfer window.
And Nancy, I'll throw it to yourself then. And then obviously Emily and Rob from whichever team you wanted to start with. I have got some other questions about some other things, but how are you kind of feeling with the transfer window? Is there any team that stood out to you? I'd say it was a pretty busy one from a WSL point of view.
Yeah, it was so busy. Honestly, trying to keep up with it. A lot of it happened, some happened obviously before the World Cup, but majority of it, bits and bobs happening during the World Cup. I remember just being like waking up and there was different news. And obviously I was 9 hours on another day. Like, the timings were just a mess for me, basically. So I was just seeing everything late. So I was just like, oh, this is great news. And everyone's been tweeting about it for like 9 hours or something. No, I think it's exciting. The amount of players and talent and people from different cultures that are coming over to the league, it's really exciting, and it gives something to the league that obviously it's a league that everyone wants to be involved in, and a lot more players are coming over. But I think it adds a dynamic and makes the league even more special than what it has been. So I'm excited to sort of see the different personalities and stuff like that shining through.
Yeah, and obviously, Emily, for yourself, I imagine as a fellow journalist, well, not a fellow journalist, I'm not one, but as a journalist, obviously, it was quite a busy. I don't know why I said that. I know that I'm not, but for yourself, I can imagine obviously quite a busy time. Obviously, you were also out in Australia as well. You're on the World Cup show that we did over the summer as well. But yeah, what did you make of the WSL signs as a whole? Any that kind of stood out for you? Any big ones in there?
Yeah, I think a lot of clubs did good. I think it's a really interesting period for a lot of clubs. I think Brighton for me was really exciting. I think they've done a lot to bring in some really exciting young talent and a lot of international experience as well. And what Mel Phillips is redesigning with Brighton, I think, is really exciting to watch. I actually don't think Arsenal's transfer window was as good as I think it's good on paper. I think it's not as good in practicality because I think there's still a lot of gaps in the defence that will need to be filled. I don't think, especially from watching the Champions League as well, I'm not entirely convinced. I think they brought in attacking talent they needed in January in the summer. Now they need defence and they haven't brought that in yet. So I'm interested to see what happens with that because I do think that they've overfilled in one area and have a lot of gaps in another. But we'll see.
Jonas is just hoping to win every game like 6-4 or something mad like that. And there's going to be some high scoring game. I'll come back to Arsenal in a bit more detail in a second. Obviously, you mentioned the Champions League as well, and that does kind of tie in a little bit to the WSL. But Rob, for yourself, obviously from Chelsea, obviously you lost your captain with Ericsson and Harder obviously going over to Germany. But again, you expect Chelsea to be relatively strong as they always have been.
Yeah, we sold, as much as I love Pernille Harder, we sold a very injury-prone player and brought an equally injury-prone attacking midfielder on a similar level. And from Ericsson, again, as much as I respect Magda Ericsson as a legend, I think over the last couple of years, her influence had been fading over the last 18 months on the pitch. You were seeing certainly the Brighton-Buchanan partnership preferred when fully fit last year, for rightly or wrongly. I think Lawrence is a tremendous signing. I think that is probably going to end up being one of the signings of the summer. And the one that really impressed me is Siaka Nusken. I know for a fact Arsenal really wanted Siaka Nusken before she was above their list before Kyra Kenny-Cross as defence midfielder. Chelsea got in there very, very quickly when they found out about this, mainly due to Melanie Leopold's having quite a close connection with her. And they got her for an absolute steal. It'll turn out to be one of the best bits of business the club have done in a long, long time. I'd say the player, again, I think Sophie Ingles a really underrated player in the Chelsea side, but I think she'll see her minutes really limited this season by how good Nusken is. And it's going to be fascinating to see when this happened a few years ago with Leopold. Ingles stepped up to a complete other level, and you had a real strong partnership there. I'm really excited to see Ingles step up again to that other level, because consistently she's been challenged throughout her career, and a bit like with Jess Carter, she's consistently delivered. And yeah, I'm really happy with the squad as it's built. I'm also really keen to see how Beaver Jones does back off loan, because I hate using the phrase like a new signing, but I think she could actually really add something useful to the squad.
Yeah, I'm pretty amazed that she's still at Chelsea, to be honest. I fully expected to go back to Everton, at least on loan from that one. But obviously, Chelsea had other ideas with your stacked, I guess, talent that you've got there as well. We may as well start with Arsenal for a little bit, because obviously they're the talk of the summer with the amount of forwards that has been mentioned that they brought in. Obviously, then out of the Champions League already as well, linked to every United player that seems to turn good, because that seems to be what Arsenal like to do at the moment. With Mary Epps did manage to stay though, so we've kept her for at least another 5 months. So we'll see what happens there. But Meg, is there a slight worry? Emily raised the point a second ago that defence still is a little bit shaky, obviously out of the Champions League already before even getting to the group stages. Is there a little bit of concern there from Arsenal, or are you pretty confident still on with the season ahead?
Yeah, completely what Emily said. Obviously, we've got almost, you don't want to say too much attacking talent for Jonas to kind of choose from, but yeah, there is gaps in that defence, and obviously Williamson is still out for quite a while. We've brought in Amanda Illerstedt and Kadina as well, and obviously we don't know how they play together really, so it'll be interesting to see. Obviously Steph Catley can play in that centre back role, and obviously Lotta Woodman-Moy did that a lot last season, but it's kind of when we had Rafa and Leah as that centre back pairing, we want that again in Leah and someone else, or whether it's Leah and Amanda. But no, it'll be interesting. Obviously, Amanda had a great World Cup for Sweden. So fingers crossed that, the back line can kind of figure itself out sooner rather than later kind of thing. And it'll be interesting to see how Jonas does that.
Before I come to you, Emily, on that same question, Dave's asking the important questions here. Nance, did you forget to put the tea bag in the tea? What's going on here? You're on mute, by the way, Nance, so I'm sure what you're saying is lovely, but we can't hear a word of it.
This is a perfect cup of tea, but they're like 1 mug tea bags that my nan got, but I make a banging cup of tea, so I won't have any of that nonsense. But I didn't make it.
We'll have to do like a taste test or something at one of the games. Just bring your tea bag. See if we can get this organised. But I will come back to you, Nancy, on a separate question. But Emily, again, I'll throw it over to yourself. It's something else you raised about Arsenal, but obviously going out the Champions League was massively disappointing from their point of view. I don't think anyone really expected that, albeit Paris are a good side, but I don't think anyone really expected that so early on. But I guess, what do you think is going to happen with them? Because obviously when the players come back, like obviously Mead, Miedemar and so on, come back into the side fully fit, there's so many attackers. How do you think Jonas is going to keep everyone happy there? Because there's so many attackers, yet as you mentioned, the back line is I don't know, like there's not much space to rotate in that back line either. So how do you think he's going to play that? Certainly in the first part of the season. Yeah, United away on the second game of the season already.
I do think, and I wrote this in a preview I did yesterday, that if they don't win against United, I think Eidevall's job is under a lot of pressure. And I think this season, if they don't do well, and I mean Courtney Cup doesn't count as well, they need to do better than that. I do actually worry he may not be in a job for that much longer. I do think that one of the big problems for them is that they're massively lacking in fullbacks. Obviously, you've got Maritz playing at right back, you've got Steph Catley at left back, you've got Katie McCabe that can come in, and bar that, that's it. There's no other rotation. So I think we'll probably see Palova pushing back into full. She plays at fullback, that drops in as a winger for the Netherlands. I think we'll probably have to see that happening. I think we'll see a lot of rotation with players playing out of position. And I don't know if it will work. But I do think it's going to test him really as a manager in how he rotates, because you've got people like Kim Little that shouldn't be playing 90. If you want to prolong her career as long as possible, she should be being capped at 60 minutes. I think I want her on a pitch for 90 minutes. I could watch her play for hours. She's brilliant. But to keep her going as long as possible, you need to be capping her minutes. So you'd need to rotate her with Kyra Keaney-Cross. But a lot of the players like Alistair, like Meg said, they haven't come to be sat on the bench. So I think it is going to test him as a manager, because this is the season where he's possibly got a lot more considerations to make than he ever has done, even when he was in Sweden. So I'm interested. I'm also very worried that we may see what should be the year that Arsenal win the league. It won't be. And I think if they don't win this season, they don't deserve to win it at all, ever, again. And you can come back to me in that in 6 months' time. But if they're not going to win it this season, with the talent you've got, no Champions League, you've got the Conti Cup in your drawer. If you don't win it this season, then Arsenal no longer, for me, is in that consideration of being one of the top teams in the league anymore.
That's a hell of a shout, that is. I mean,
you make 4 years since they last won the league, so
you make a fair point. Obviously, we saw with United last season that we were able to just keep a solid 11 because no Champions League. Obviously, went out the Conti Cup really early as well. Just focused solely on the league, and we obviously saw what happened with us with the cup final and pushing Chelsea all the way like we did. But Nancy, I'll throw it to yourself. Obviously, Don's mentioned the injuries there, obviously talking about the midfield. There's another comment, obviously talking about players maybe not coming back the same after obviously the ACL injuries that Arsenal have had as well. How would you assess Arsenal's season? I guess, what would you class as a success for them? Emily said the Conti Cup is not necessarily a success. Should they be winning the league with the squad that they've got, or do you think it's maybe a little bit off what Chelsea and maybe United currently have?
I think everything Emily was saying, bar the big massive statement at the end, you could see me nodding along to. Like, I completely agree when she said that Jonas's job will be under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure if they don't perform, because Arsenal are known for being that team that you pretty much bank to be in the Champions League. Do you know what I mean? You banked to be in a final, to be competing for cups and winning trophies, just because of the history that they have. So literally what Em's saying, I was like, yeah, she's not wrong. And I think the fans that they get there every week in, week out, they deserve performances and to be in a space where they're doing well. The fact that they're not in Champions League, honestly, was a massive shock. Like, you realistically, would you have put your money down and been like, Arsenal won't get Champions League this season with the players that they've brought in, the talent that they've got, the rotation they've got up top? I think you can't just be winning a Conti Cup and be like, yeah, we're happy with that. I think, yeah, they need for him not to be under too much pressure. I'd say at least 2 titles, if I'm being honest, and one of them has to be a big one, a very big one that everyone wants to get their hands on more than the others. But yeah, you kind of, as I said, like, for Arsenal not to be a team that you're expecting to be at the top and really fighting for it, the last couple of years it has in some minds been a doubt. So it's scary to think, like, thinking about it. Arsenal are a team that you expect to be really, really performing at a top end. And yeah, I back what Emily said, bar the last bit. I'm sorry, I can't take that though.
I tend to agree, especially when you're talking about the Champions League, because you look at Arsenal last season, not far off, potentially should have got to the final, obviously, especially if players were fully fit getting those 2 games. So you look at that and then to not be in it at all, and it's amazing to me. But I mean, yeah, I think that's the kind of point we're getting at, Sarah. Is there more pressure? I think so, because without that competition, yes, the Conti Cup's there, but it's not really, especially in the group stages, you're not getting that same tough opposition as you do in the Champions League. Rob, last kind of final word on Arsenal. I'll throw it over to yourself in terms of what would you kind of deem as a success for Arsenal for this season? Do you think that they need to be winning the league? Obviously, as a Chelsea fan, you're solely hoping they don't. But what are your kind of thoughts on them in this season?
Well, considering that every other year Chelsea spent money and brought players in, Arsenal fans have then gone on and said it's unacceptable for them not to win everything. they should really be winning everything, including the Champions League. Obviously, they can't win that, but anything less than a domestic treble, that's a massive failure. Because if they're going to hold Chelsea to other standards like this, they should be expected held to themselves. For what it's worth, I think it's interesting you say about Edeval's job being under pressure. I thought that he was quite lucky to survive in the summer, in all honesty. I think the fact that there were the injuries to Mead and Meademeyer were massively sort of used as sort of cruxes. But there are very few games in the second half of last season that you look at and you think they won them comfortably. A lot of the time it was individual bits of brilliance or mistakes from opposition players, mainly Frida Marnham supplying it. And I think the Champions League run massively papered over the cracks in the league. Especially when it came to, for example, that game at Kings Meadow at the end of the season. Arsenal didn't play at all well in that game. And I appreciate by that point, people are saying, Chelsea going towards the title run, and obviously it's a different situation. But if other results had fallen differently, that could have been the reason they lost out in the Champions League. And I think the one that really showed him was the last day of the season against Aston Villa. And the fact that they were pretty comprehensively beaten on that day. Now, I appreciate their season was effectively already wrapped up by this point, save City getting cricket scores. But even still, I'd have thought they'd want to go out and get the job done. And they haven't started the season very well. I think, they were poor against Linköping in the Champions League, despite winning 3-0. Against Paris FC, I thought they were extremely lucky to even take it to extra time. Obviously, losing on penalties, I think, is a bit different. I'm not going to blame them for that because penalties are a lottery. But I look at a lot of that. It goes one of two ways. I think with Arsenal, either it will really, really gel. They'll be really exciting. They'll score plenty of goals this season. Or alternatively, I could see it completely crashing and burning. And I don't know which way it's going to go. It feels like it's either going to be a very, very successful season or a season similar to City a few years ago.
It's interesting you say, obviously, you mentioned City there. We're going to get onto them in just a second. I want to wrap up the transfer section, obviously, with them a little bit as well, because they've made next to no signings. So I feel like it's, one. So not much to talk about with them. But I think you're right. I think, you'll see when I get to the table predictor at the end where I've put Arsenal, and you'll see where my thoughts are around them. I'm just going to ask a blanket question. Any of you can jump in on this one in terms of who you think has had the best transfer window. Because I said there's been a lot of movement, a lot of players kind of going in and out, a lot of transfers within the WSL sides we've seen. United very active, spent a lot of money. I think, didn't we spend the most? Or at least the second? I'm pretty sure we did spend the most this summer. So obviously United have spent big this summer. Who do you think has had the best window? It's an open question to you.
Pound for pound quality, I'm going to give it to Leicester City. I think they've recruited really, really well. They had a decent squad of hard-working players there. They've recruited Leipzig, who I think is a massive benefit for them, but they've also brought goal scorers in, which is the thing they lacked so much last season. And I think I can see the screws there, but I think when you look at the pound for pound situation that they're in, I think they've actually recruited really, really well, considering that I think it's going to be a tough season for them again. The other honourable mention goes to Brighton because, again, I think Mel Phillips has done a good job there, and I think their biggest success is keeping hold of Katie Robinson.
I think Leicester has done okay, but I wouldn't say that they had a lot of their 13 outgoings, and I don't think they've actually really had any time. Every season, Leicester have lost a lot, brought in a lot, and they've never had time to gel. So I think whilst they've had a good amount coming in, I don't think really it's going to do enough for Leicester. I think they haven't caught their game plan right. I think Brighton, I think, have had the best transfer window. I think the amount of depth they've brought in, what Mel Phillips is creating is really exciting. I spoke to her about 2 weeks ago now, and her vision for what she wants for Brighton is so clear. She knows exactly what her plan is. And I think Bremer, going from literally nearly scoring an equaliser in the Champions League final, something drew her to Brighton. And I know what that is. And there's a whole thing coming out about it. But that piece of how they've now set up their attack is so interesting because Robinson was a massive threat on the cross, but they didn't have anyone to finish it. And now you've got someone who is categorically known in Bremer for putting away those chances. So I really think they're doing well. And I do think Aston Villa have gone off the back of how good they had last season and just added strength to strength. I think the signings they made, getting Kirsty Hansen and Anna Patton on permanent deals, DVD, they've done so well to keep the momentum going. I don't know whether they're going to be able to keep the sustainability of last season going. I think we'll touch on that, but I do think in terms of transfers, for me, it's Brighton and Aston Villa.
Yeah, Villa have done some great work. For me, I think one key one for Villa, you touched on it, Kirsty Hansen. I think she plays with so much confidence at Villa. I think she's happy, and I think she is a quality player. So the fact that they've been able to keep her is incredible, and Carla would have definitely put in graft for that, because Man United wouldn't have just wanted to give her away based on how she played with Villa. Obviously, their keeper that they've brought in, I think Lucy Parker, when she's not injured, she's a great player. She's obviously on the cusp of the England squad, and she's a really exciting player anyway. I'm excited to see how she does at Villa and how she slots in. Yeah, naturally for me, it was Villa have done great work. Brighton were just pinging them off as well, so naturally have to give them a shout out. And I know they didn't sign a lot of people, but I'm just gonna say I'm really happy that Jill Ward's in the WSL again. So you give City their flowers for that. I think they just did that for me. But yeah, we're gonna say we rate it.
I do
agree. Yeah,
I do think. Oh no, carry on. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say in terms of City, I think their biggest success has been the fact they've had a quiet window. Like, I think they needed a season of stability. They needed to keep the key players. They've kept that front three. They've put Jill Ward in behind that. That is a match for any team.
I do think player retention is as important as bringing in new signings. I think the fact that they've only lost 3 players, and when you look at the talent they do have, it does actually speak numbers for how they are as a team, that they're not going to have to introduce 5-6 new people into the team. They've already got that. It's one coming in that they already know. A lot of them played against it. They know how Jill Ward plays. And I do think being able to retain a lot of players like Chelsea, like Arsenal, and especially Man City have been able to do, I think it is actually a mark of a team that is doing well. You've got players like Hemp and Horton and whatnot signing on long-term deals. Even Alex Greenwood, they've got her to 25, 26. If they're able to do that, then there's something budding within that, and adding Rod into that is only going to continue to develop that. And especially like Mary Fowler, I think she really proved herself at the World Cup. Her stepping now up into a more senior role at the club will only do better for City. So I have City in my top 3, but that's simply because I do think the way that they've managed to retain players will be their biggest benefit this season.
Oh, sorry, mate. Before you jump, you've got me seriously thinking of your top 3, because that means United or Arsenal. We'll come to that in a bit. Meg, who do you think has had the best transfer window?
Yeah, I'd probably say Villa, and obviously someone who hasn't been mentioned yet. They've obviously got Ebony Salmon now as well, who I think is, a great young player. She's only 22. Obviously, she's been in and around the Lionesses a bit, obviously not permanently, but I'm sure she will be very soon. And I think that's a great attacking option for Carla Ward. And I think, the midfield that they've already got with Kenza Daly and Jordan Nobbs coming in January, I think, if they can keep the consistency like they did last season. Obviously, Emily isn't sure whether they can kind of keep that up, but I think with those signings, and Van Domselaar is one of the best in the world, so to replace Hannah Hampton with her is just unbelievable.
Certainly, I mean, Dave's making a very good point there. All ex-United players spreading themselves around the WSL. We're certainly getting about. A lot of the signs, we let 21 go, so I think 17 on permanent. So a lot of our players are out and about there. So little agents helping United to get over the line, and hopefully win the league. I tend to agree. I think Villa have had a really good. I sound really biased though, because I'm the only United fan here, but I do think United have had a solid window. I know that people are going to obviously point to Honor and Alessia obviously going on freeze at the start of the window. I think we've replaced pretty well. I think Gabby George is a decent sign, and obviously top scorer at the World Cup in Mia Zauer. Obviously Jace, a brilliant sign from Barcelona. I think we've got some good players there, and kept a spine, obviously with Earps, Letitia, obviously Zellum Ladd. Obviously Guerrero is going to go into that midfield as well. So I think we've made some great signings. So I don't know. I'd put us in there, but who knows? We'll come to that in just a little second, where we think United are going to finish in this table. Before I kind of come to some quick fire ones, and then we'll kind of wrap this up with a full table predictor. Obviously, you're all non-United fans, so I want to ask you, obviously, considering this is on a United channel, United, PSG obviously have been drawn PSG in the Champions League. We've mentioned Arsenal, obviously their struggles against Paris FC, slightly different side. How does everyone think United are going to get on in that tie? Because United have got probably one of the hardest starts to this season that I've possibly seen. Villa away, obviously then Arsenal on the Friday night, PSG the following. I think that's either Leicester or Everton, then PSG again. We've got a ridiculously hard start to the season. So if we don't get off to a good start, questions are obviously going to be asked of Mark Skinner, I'm sure of it. I mean, questions are always asked of him, but that's a whole other conversation. So who wants to... Oh, Nancy's on mute. She's straight in there.
I just want to say it comes back down to what we've been talking about the scheduling, the intensity, how much they're going to have to be playing, how much rotation they're going to be able to put through, how many of their players that Mark obviously wants to start are going to be able to start continuously, how many of his players are going to need to be rested for the games, bigger games, i.e. against PSG, that they need to win games, you know what I mean? They can't go in half-hearted. And PSG, we know that they're a team, when you play them, they go all in. They've got fast players. They've got players who are going to really impact on United's defence and push them and try and get as many goals as possible. So I think it's how he manages his players and his rotation and ensures he gets the best out of all of his players that he's got in his squad during that sort of set time. And it goes back to saying this is why you'd argue Arsenal need to do well in, let's say, the WSL, because they haven't got that pressure on them, where now United have that pressure for this amount of time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, how does everyone else kind of see it? And do you see United as obviously WSL aside, because you'll kind of answer that when we come to our table, but where do you kind of see United against obviously PSG? Because it's our first kind of foray into this European competition. We did play PSG last year, obviously in pre-season, and beat them actually, but obviously it's pre-season. Anyone beats anyone in pre-season, so I won't comment on that too much. But yeah, Emily Fusat, are you pretty? How are you feeling about this one?
I think you've actually got. It could be a lot worse. I generally think United have a decent chance. I worry if they do beat PSG. Like Nant said, they don't have. I actually think United had a good window, but I still think that they're still playing catch up, and they will be for a little while. Because for me, aside from that starting 11, by one or two positions, there's not a lot of competition for a lot of places on that pitch. It's kind of, who's going to start. They're probably going to have to be playing 75, 80 minutes week in, week out. And then you have, players that you come in here and there, a couple of injuries already. I do think it's not as strong of depth because they are playing catch up. But PSG, if you got this tie at the start of last season, I would say United are out. But they haven't. Last season, they didn't have a great season. They're in and out. They've got a lot of off-pitch problems. They've lost Diani. They've had quite a few outgoings. Had some good signings. They have got a lot of attacking depth, but I do think that this could have gone a lot worse. And I do think that United are playing a PSG team that are not as strong as they used to be. If this was last season before, 100%, I think United will get smoked. Now, I actually do think that United have a fighting chance, but I think getting something at home is going to be really important. They're going to have to use playing. It's the LSV, I'm right in thinking that they need to take something, because we saw how difficult it was. Chelsea against Barcelona last season, played to minimalise the effect, then go to Camp Nou. They need to do similar, but do a lot better than just taking 1-0 to play for away. So it's interesting, but I do worry that it may not go completely to plan. But it's the joys of football. You never know.
Go on, Rob.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this. I watched Chelsea play PSG live last year, in December at the end of the group stage, and I was thoroughly unimpressed by them at Stamford Bridge. In all honesty, I thought they looked okay. That obviously Katoto being back, if she is fully fit, it makes it a complete different proposition, because Katoto is phenomenal. I think Tabitha Chawinga coming in is a huge signing for them, because it takes some of the goal burden off Katoto, and Chawinga's one of those forwards that has that really annoying habit, and Caitlin Ford's a similar one to them, where they just have an ability to pop up and score. Like it's one of those. It's a really great habit to have as a forward, where you're suddenly, you're under no pressure whatsoever, and the ball will bounce loose to the box. It's in the bottom corner. I think a lot of attention will be on from a United point of view of how to try and, I think, keep the first leg quite tight, because I definitely don't think they'll want to go back to Paris, chasing a result. I don't think that's a good situation to be in. The positives, I would say, from a United point of view, I think PSG defensively this season are a lot weaker. They've lost a lot of their leadership back there. They've lost Lawrence, who's very, very vocal. They've lost Illerstedt, who's very, very vocal. The replacements, I don't think, are of the same caliber. The big challenge for me, I think, for United will be seeing someone get to grips with Giora in the midfield. They will need someone, I think, to mark Giora out the game, and this is something Chelsea did really effectively against them last year through Sophie Ingle and Erin Cuthbert, was they were able to minimise her ability to sort of dominate the midfield. It's a big task. I'm not sure who you'd put in sort of for it on a sort of player-to-player marking job, but I think whoever wins that battle between United playing Grace Giora, that team will end up ultimately winning the tie.
And Meg, for you, so you'd love to see us go further than Arsenal this season, wouldn't you? You'd love to see us in the group stages, right?
I really wouldn't. I think it would just be quite funny that if you did get knocked out, then everything that every United fan has said to us up to this point will just not stand. But I think I agree with what Emily said. Like, if you want to be playing PSG, kind of now is the time. If you wanting to try and get a result out of them, I think the first tie will probably be quite a cagey affair. It might be could be a 0-0 draw. Both teams not really wanting to score, kind of thing, trying to defend for their lives, kind of thing. But I don't want to say you will get through. I don't want to say you won't get through it. Anything can happen in football, but I think getting a result at home for you, whether it's a draw or whether it's, even just a 1-0 loss, just not getting a battering at home will be so important to then go away and, try and get the win, really.
Yeah, I think that I'm so looking forward to that. Obviously, I know we've got Villa and Arsenal first, but I'm so looking forward to being in that terrace against PSG at home. I'm so glad it's at LSV as well, by the way. I much prefer that than at Old Trafford. Right, some quick fire WSL ones, and then we're going to come to a little table predictor. So top scorer. We'll come to each of you first on that one. Obviously, we know Daly got it last year. Who are we thinking this year is going to be top scorer? That's open to anyone who wants to dive in first.
I think off the back of, the confidence that she had in the World Cup, I think Bunny Shaw will give it a good go again. Obviously, I think Daly will also be up there. I do think Russo will be up there, but I am going to go Bunny Shaw because obviously Daly just pipped Bunny Shaw to it last season, so I'm going to go Bunny Shaw.
Yeah, Bunny was the first name that come to me when you asked that question. She's such an incredible player. I just feel like no matter, in my personal opinion, obviously I'm a neutral, just had to throw that out there. I do think Bunny's just one of those players you cannot dislike, and she's so good at what she does, and she deserves to be recognised for how good she is at scoring goals and just as a player. So for me, Bunny as well. And I'd love to see it for her, if I'm completely honest. I really would. And that doesn't mean I think City will win the league, but I do think she'll score a lot of goals.
I think, again, Bunny Shaw for me is, I put my money on her any day. I had my money on her last season, and she, just narrowly missed out. But I do think she is an incredible talent. I think she's really fighting for it, and I think she's got a taste of proving herself, and I think that's only going to propel her more. And I spoke to her at the World Cup after a couple of games, and she was like, it's only going up. The trajectory is only climbing for her and for the team. So I do think there's a couple of dark horses in there that I think are gonna shake things up. I think gone are the days that we're gonna see the same 5 goal scorers in the same bracket every year, every campaign. So I do think that there's going to be a few that are going to step up and net quite a lot. But yeah, Bunny Shaw, I think Daly's not going to go down without a fight either. She's going to keep wanting that, and she's going to want to win it every year. So I think it's going to be a competition between them two. I would want to put someone like Lauren James in there. I do think she's going to want to prove a lot after the World Cup, and I think she really wants to step up and take a lot of that weight for Chelsea to do what Sam Kerr does so well. But you know what she's like. She will find the back of the net every single chance she gets. So I do think she's on an upward trajectory in terms of stats as well. So those are the three that I'd put in there, but we'll see.
Yeah, I can't believe no one said Sam Kerr. Okay, she had a poor year last year and still scored 31 in all competitions. Imagine what she actually has now. We can actually rotate a striker and actually put players like Beaver Jones in and give her a rest. No, I think I think it might be Daly again. Just because I think Villa are playing her in the right way, are using her in the right system, and they're going to set up in a similar way. I think the fact that they've got Salmon in there means that you can maybe play two up front, which I think will suit Daly well. It'll be really interesting to see how Jessie Ferreira does. Again, I'm sure I've butchered the pronunciation of that, but it'll be really interesting to see how she does do after what I think is coming in with a lot of expectation. But you know, despite being at Barcelona last year and Barcelona doing so well, I think a lot of Barcelona fans were disappointed by her output overall, but at the same time didn't necessarily want to see her sold. So it'll be fascinating to see how she sort of steps up with the sort of mantle. And it will be really interesting to see how people like Roman Hogg do. I'm not necessarily tipping them for the Golden Boot, but I think it will be really interesting because they're going to be the main goal getters expected to sort of, you know, to get the to get the chances and take the chances for the likes of Liverpool. And Roman Hogg has shown that she can score on a regular basis.
I actually really like her. I think it would have been a good signing for United if we needed a rotation striker as well, actually. But there's obviously being a United channel, obviously there's a lot of United names in the chat, as I kind of expected on that one. But yeah, I think all kind of fair shout. Do you know what? And I will say this actually, but I genuinely think if Beth England wasn't out for the first few months, I think she would be a shout. I can see Nance's face lighting up now. But I think she would be a shout if she wasn't missing obviously part of the season, because you saw what she did last year. You know, she finished third or fourth last year. I know she got 14. I can't remember whether that was third or fourth. So even then, obviously after the move to Spurs, still nearly got near the top off the back of that. So I would have put her in there if she wasn't out. But yeah, I think Shaw, Daly, both good shouts. I don't think it'll be Daly this year purely trying to think Villa's goals will be more spread out across the team rather than it just being Daly. But yeah, I think Jace for United is a good shout. We're obviously relying a lot on her. There's a lot of pressure on her, you know, to deliver this year for us. Obviously, the goals for us were spread out last year, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of pressure on her. But yeah, I think probably Bunny Shaw, just because I don't see many other scorers in that City side. I know Hemp and Kelly, and obviously you mentioned Fowler. These other players are capable of getting a goal, but we saw last year City were very reliant on Shaw getting the goal. So yeah, I think probably for her. I mean, Jennifer, that's a wild. I don't know about Garcia. To be fair, Garcia did score like 7 or 8 off the bench. So if she starts every week, maybe, but I don't see it. I want her to start, but I just don't see it.
I do think Rord will pop up with a few now and then for City, though. You know, she's got a good screamer in her, so I can see that happening.
She'll be doing those for me. She'll be like, Nance, that's for you. Thanks, mate, for backing me. I'll be like, that's all right, Jill.
See, that'll be a celebration. She'll just be pointing to you in the crowd. That's what we need to be seeing next season. We'll see if that happens next season. There we go. That's aims for the season. On that, so MVP, who you think the most valuable player is going to be? And like I said, this could literally be anybody. It doesn't obviously not top scorer. It doesn't have to be the Golden Glove winner. Literally, who you think the best player of the season is going to be? Obviously, sometimes that correlates with the top scorer, depending on obviously how well they've played. But who you think the best player in the league is going to be next season? There's a lot of shouts for this, I appreciate. So I will let you say a couple of names if you're stuck on just naming just one, because I appreciate there's a lot here.
Can I curveball that a little bit and do a player that I think is going to do really well for a team?
Far away.
I'm really excited to see Grace Clinton at Spurs. I was really excited for the link up with Beth, genuinely. I do think Grace is going to do a lot for Tottenham specifically. And then I think Alessia for Arsenal, I think she's going to... It's like we saw when she played for England the other day, getting that goal. She just pops up with goals. And I think I can see her doing that a lot for Arsenal, if I'm completely honest. So I think those two players for those two teams. But I do think Alessia will really build into this Arsenal team as well. It feels really weird saying Alessia and Arsenal, by the way. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm not used to it yet.
We don't name her on this channel. but I really don't know. I'm not going to comment. I'll let someone else go.
I agree with Grace Clinton. I wrote her I did my Spurs preview today, and I said that she's my one to watch. I think she's going to do really good things. She's got a lot to prove. She's not had an easy ride of things. I think, she was stuck on the bench at United, didn't get picked, didn't get a chance, and then went to Bristol, helped them. I think, she's got a really good chance. There's a few players that I think will be really integral to a team that won't necessarily have stats on paper for me. I think, again, what Brighton have done, they've brought in a lot of defence. I mean, we saw Jordan Carabali in the Columbia England game, how well she defended against Hemp and Russo. I think she's one for me that will be really integral to Brighton wanting that 6th, 5th place position. Keeping her in the game and having her on top form as a defender, I think is going to be really important. I think looking at Arsenal, obviously Kim Little, I think players like that are what keep Arsenal in the game, really. I think, again, like I mentioned, Victoria Pelova, I think, is a really versatile player. And she stepped up last season when she didn't go into the team expecting to play, and then was starting games regularly and proved herself. And I think she's one of those players that she can play as a winger, as a fullback, and in midfield. And in this team right now, where there still is a lot of gaps for Arsenal, I think her versatility is going to be really important to filling those gaps. And we saw that little turn she did to get away from Daly. Everyone saw that in the England game, right? That's what I'm excited for her, is that she's got that little bit of something that I think just really puts pieces into places for teams. So I'd have to say those 3, 4, I don't know how many I mentioned, were really good. And I think also from a Chelsea perspective, I have to agree with what Rob was saying at the beginning. I think New Skin is a really good signing. I think she is going to be really interesting. I think if she gets game time, which I think Chelsea will probably do the similar thing they did with Lauren James, etc., kind of ease them in a little bit. Obviously, James was injured, so yada, yada. But I think when she gets game time, I think she's really going to shine. And I think that's the moments that she'll start to rival for some of those positions in midfield to get more minutes under her, because I do think she is very technically gifted and a very, very budding young talent who will probably put in some pretty impressive shows. But yeah, those are mine.
I'd agree with in terms of Pelova. I think, when we signed her in January, she's been absolutely unreal. I also think, it's probably an obvious shout, but Caitlin Ford, I think she'll rack up a lot of assists, but, she'll probably also get a lot of goals. It's kind of that balance that we kind of need in the forward line. So I think she'll be a standout player. Obviously, Mead will kind of come back. I don't think she'll shine necessarily because she's coming back from such a big injury. I think that'll be, next season that, we kind of see a new Beth Mead. But I also think, obviously, we talk about goalkeepers all the time, but I think Musovic for Chelsea, I think, obviously, they've got so many great goalkeepers, you can kind of talk about, they've almost got like 3 starting goalkeepers that they could start in any competition. But I was, her performances, especially in the World Cup, were absolutely unbelievable. I was just mesmerized watching her. And I just think that, with the amount of competitions that Chelsea are in this season, I think she'll rack up a lot of stats.
So trying to actually give an MVP across the entire league, I think there's like 2 names that really stand out for me, and I think if their respective teams have good seasons, it'll be why. For City, I think it's Lauren Hemp. I think Hemp, although she wasn't her absolute best last year, but she still contributed a lot. And I think if she can get that to that level of end product, you'll talk about a 10+ goal and assist winger, and then going on to an actual 10+ goal and assist winger last season. I think Brighton, if people ask me what the main reason Chelsea won the title last year was, it was the fact that they were able to have Brighton continuously keeping that unbelievable form. And you started to see it towards the end of the previous year, where she just caught fire towards the end and made herself undroppable. Last year, I think she literally came into it and said, right, I know that, Harder's getting back to fitness. I know Kirby's getting back to fitness. I'm going to make it so you've got a problem, because you're always going to start Sam Kerr. You're going to need to drop one of them. And Brighton made herself absolutely undroppable. And I think if Chelsea are going to succeed in any or all competitions this year, Brighton's going to be a huge, huge part of it.
Yeah, well, Rob, I'll agree with Brighton every day of the week. I'm all for Brighton prop on this channel as well. But yeah, I think I agree with what a comment is. Obviously, you've all very really good shouts, to be honest. But I think, obviously, again, Bias United fan coming out, I think Letitia, for me, I think last season she stepped up so much, obviously, in our backline. She's one of the main reasons we had such a strong backline. Obviously, I know Anna was exceptional as well alongside her on the right side. But I think Letitia, if we have a strong defence again, it'll be because of her. And obviously, we've got 2 brilliant goalkeepers as well. So, yeah, I'm going to just throw her into the mix as well. But there was a comment I just wanted to quickly get to before we kind of come to the table. Obviously, yes, we do hope that Emma Watson has a speedy recovery. If you actually go back and watch Monday's show, you'll find out when we found out that news, because you'll notice we stopped talking about her as having such a great season throughout that. It was about 20 minutes into the show. You'll notice all of our tone change when we're talking about her. So, yeah, obviously, we hope that she has a speedy recovery. And Caroline Weir, obviously, for that as well, that came out today as well. So, yeah, not good on those fronts. But Emma's got such a bright future. So, hopefully, in 12 months' time, when she comes back, we'll see a really good Emma Watson in this United side. Right then, let's come to our kind of table. We're going to start at the bottom, obviously work our way up to the top, and let's see where people have got teams in our table. So we'll start obviously in 12th place at the bottom. I'm really intrigued to see if we've all gone for the same here, or whether we're going to be mixing and matching, because I'll just throw mine out there now. Mine's not Bristol to go straight back down. I've gone for a different side at the bottom. So I may as well say mine is I've got West Ham at the bottom. Is anyone agreeing with that? Is everyone agreeing with that? How are we agreeing on that one? There's 2 hands that went up there. I like that.
I've put that West Ham are getting relegated. I think they've had the time. I think I've got a lot of opinions on West Ham at the moment, things from I know within inside the club. And I just think that they've had time to build and they just haven't. I think it's, for me, I see the way they treat the women's team, it's still a little bit of lip service. And I say that with grains of salt, that I think they've just massively struggled to do anything with the women's team. I think they've had a lot of opportunities to, and they just haven't. So I think for me that they are going down. I think the only thing that may keep them up is that they have got a couple of good goal scorers, and they have signed Emma Harries, who I'm a big fan of, who I think will do really good things. But I do think they're going down, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, Robin and Maggie, Meg, you didn't agree. Who you got in 12th? I'm assuming Bristol.
Yeah, it was a toss-up between West Ham and Bristol. I mean, I think they've made like 10 signings, Bristol. Like, you know, they've brought in a lot of players. I mean, they've got Marquise on loan from Arsenal, who will be, you know, really vital in goal for them. But, you know, it's not easy coming up into a new league, and it's going to be so competitive. I just don't think they quite have the squad to stay up this season. But, I mean, I could be wrong.
It's interesting. I got to be honest. I just brought this comment. I've never been called wild before. That's a shout. I don't know who's brought the wildness to this show, but I'll leave that with you. There's obviously a few banter ones. Rob saying Chelsea, but that's not going to happen. But you've obviously nodded your head at West Ham as well.
Yeah, I think that they, from a structural point of view, the players and the fans deserve a lot better from the support, or the lack of support that they are getting at this moment in time. They should be getting an awful lot more. There are a lot of structural and stability issues at the club, and realistically, I think it's all going to come to a head. I hope with it coming to a head, it actually makes them reflect and realise that they need to take it more seriously, because they are a big club and they should be able to, you know, do better, in all honesty. You know, this is a club that has had an England international sort of leave them on a free transfer, has had other top players leave them sort of, you know, for various reasons. And yeah, it would be a shame actually to lose them from the WSL, because their fans, I know a lot of very good West Ham fans and a lot of very passionate. They have a sort of a very passionate, vocal fan base, and they deserve better.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think it's definitely, I think most people would agree. I think Bristol obviously will be down there as well. I'm kind of going to ask the next bit in terms of, and Nancy, I will come to you on this one. If you want to name teams, by all means, I know obviously there's certain things on it, but I'll just ask you as a group who you think is going to be in that, I guess, relegation battle. You know, that could be from 8th down to 12th if you want to name a multitude of teams, or whether you think there's only going to be a couple down there. How can you kind of see, because we saw a pretty good relegation. It's never good, obviously, a relegation battle, but excitement-wise for neutrals, there was a few teams. Obviously, Spurs were down there for a little bit as well. Leicester obviously escaped as well. Went obviously down to the wire, that one. So who can you see this season struggling a little bit and close to that draw?
I'd say naturally, like, I want them to do well, but Bristol coming back up. The player, they have brought a few players in. They've got young players, obviously, like Brooke has been staying, and Brooke's a quality young player. She's got so much to give, and I'm excited to see what's next. I do think they need to bring in a few more when the next transfer period comes up. Sorry, I went blank there. But I would like them to see well, but I do naturally think coming up and stepping up is always a big challenge. We know that. They're a team, Bristol are a team that have been in the WSL, and yeah, I'd like to see them stay up and do well, but I do think they're going to really, really fight for it. They're going to really have to fight for it.
I mean, that's an interesting comment. It's obviously Luke. I believe if that's the Luke I'm thinking of, obviously a Spurs fan, but putting yourself in the mix near the bottom. I mean, obviously we saw Bething pretty much kept them up by herself last season, but I think with Clinton there as well, Spurs maybe haven't brought in as many as I thought. Obviously Thomas has gone there as well. I don't know with Spurs. Obviously new manager as well. So
I think that's the big unknown for me with Tottenham at this moment in time. And also, I don't think they've got the easiest start to the season, if I remember correctly. It's the sort of thing I hope the manager is given time, because from what I'm told, it's someone that wants to bring fresh ideas in and really wants to support it, really wants to push it. They've brought in a couple of really interesting players. I want to say it's Ihitana, I want to say is how you pronounce the name. Again, I've probably butchered it, but it looks a very, very good signing. And I think, again, if they'd kept Beth England fit, I would definitely put them, solidly in mid-table. But I think the absence of England, and especially not knowing exactly how long that's going to be, and the fact that it is going to take her time to get back up to speed because she's effectively going to have missed all of pre-season, that's sort of, I think, a big blow. But realistically, if they can keep England sort of, get her back to fitness, they'll win games. It's just however long they can go before that, and can they minimise the damage before that happens?
I think I've spoke to quite a few of the managers a couple of weeks ago during the media day, and he was one of them. And I actually think what he was saying in when we chatted to him, that his plan isn't to be top table straight away. He just wants to build on what the promise they began to show at the end of last season. So I think even he's very realistic in the fact that Spurs are really aiming as high as, I think, from what I remember he was saying, about 6th is where they ideally would want to be finishing, that's sustainable and that's achievable. For me, I've put them in 8th because I think that they'll do better than last season, but I do think they're going to struggle. I do think the new manager bounce is going to help them. I think I spoke to Rosella Ryan as well, and she seems really, really happy and really confident under Robert. And I do think that he will actually bring a lot of how they play in Sweden. We saw it with Idaval. He brings a style of play that really does benefit a lot of the players in England. So I do think we'll really see that. I do think, though, they have lost a fair few important players that were quite solid for them last season that I think they haven't fully replaced yet. I do think I have put Everton in the relegation battle. I think I've put them finishing quite low down. I know that they're not in a terribly good financial position, and I do think that they've lost a lot of really good defenders. Gabby George is a big loss. Really going over to the USA is a massive loss at centre-back for them. And I don't think they've really strengthened enough. And I think they don't have Jess Park anymore. They've got Ramsey, but I just think they're not going to do as well as other seasons. I'm quite worried about them, which hurts because I do really like what Everton do and how long Everton have been consistent in developing the female game. I do think they are going to struggle this season, and I do think Bristol City are in hot water as well. I just think the disparity gap between the Championship and the WSL is just too big at the moment, that we're not seeing sustainability in the top Championship teams to remain in the WSL. I think until we bridge that gap, we are just going to see clubs that go up come back down again, and we're going to see that keep bounce because there's just not that sustainability yet. But that's what I've put at my bottom of the table is Everton, Bristol, West Ham, Leicester, and then going that way, Spurs.
I was going to say, if we just wrap up the kind of bottom 6, so have we all gone for the 6? So I'll give you who I've got in the bottom 6. So I've actually got Brighton down there. I've got Brighton in 7th, but so I've got Brighton, Spurs. No, hang on, what am I doing here? Yeah, West Ham at the bottom, Bristol, Leicester, Everton, Spurs, Brighton. Obviously in reverse order, that is for me. Is there anyone that disagrees? Does anyone think Liverpool or City or Villa are going to be down in that bottom half? Or
Villa won't be in the bottom half. No way. Absolutely not. They better not, after I've just been so confident with that.
I was about to say that's the sort of clip that at the end of the season, that's the sort of thing that comes up to haunt you.
Yeah,
I do.
It's fine.
I-
I'm a neutral. It's all right.
I do think they're going to struggle. I think it's hard to keep stability. They've gone from 9th to 5th really quickly. And I do think that it's going to be a challenge this season to maintain that. But they've retained players. They've brought in players. I think as long as they get through that first 4 or 5 weeks, I think they're going to be fine. I do think it's going to be a bit touch and go. And I think for me, my bottom is West Ham, Bristol, Everton, Leicester, Spurs, Liverpool. And I have got Brighton in 6th because I just think that what Mel's doing is brilliant. I love Mel Phillips, if you can't tell. I think she's absolutely brilliant. And I think
actually started the Mel Phillips Supporter Society. So if
I will be sat there
there
waving my flag for Mel. She's also one of the only managers, she's one of the managers that will give you time when you work with her, when you talk to her. She will give you so much time. She stood when she was at London City, she stood in the pouring rain with me. I was the only reporter there and chatted to me for 15 minutes in the pouring rain after they beat Portsmouth 1-0 in the FA Cup. And I was like, from that moment, I'm like, yeah, I think she's great. So
Go on, Meg.
I agree with Emily in terms of Brighton. They're not in they're 6th for me. They're not in the bottom. I've gone Bristol, West Ham, Leicester, Everton, Liverpool. Yeah, I think that's I think I said 6 there.
I'm losing track as well. It's throwing me off that you only say up to 7th, and it's like, but you are saying 6th there. Yeah, I think it's hard to do. So if we're going for a top 6, then Rob, I'll throw it to yourself first. Who have you got just missing it? Because I'm pretty sure we've all got the same top 5. I think it's going to be the same top 5 as last season. But have you gone Liverpool or Brighton, or have you gone somebody else sneaking into the top 6?
Yeah, mine. I have Liverpool and Brighton being very, very close to each other in 6th and 7th, and I'm not sure exactly who's going to end up being there. I think that because the fact they have an ability to pull out annoying results at the moment against better sides, I have a feeling Liverpool might just edge it. But I also feel Brighton could end up being the sort of side that does that this year and gives a bloody nose to someone, especially with the sort of quality that they've got there. But yeah, I think between them, it's sort of much of a muchness.
I think that's pretty fair. So this is going to be the interesting one, this kind of top 5 order, because if I just throw it out there and say I've got City down in 5th, is that going to surprise anyone, or is
I also have City in 5th.
You're a United fan, and you're a United fan. You hate Manchester City, so it doesn't surprise you. You'd have them in 12th if you could.
I don't know. I hear the points earlier on about them having obviously a stable side now, but I obviously not losing many players and only bringing obviously I say only Jill Roord coming in as well. But I don't know. I just don't think things are clicking at City, and I think if Bunny Shaw's goals aren't ticking them over, I don't know. I just can't see it. But I agree with what Emily says as well about Villa. It's going to be interesting to see how they get on. I don't know. It's going to be really tough, that one.
I think with City, though, we can't. I don't know why. I just feel like you can't write them off like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, as Em made a really good point of, well, a few of you have made the point of they've kept quite a few players on extended contract periods as well. Not bought many in there, building something and trying to be really consistent and keep going with it, which, I mean, we've already spoken about way before just how Gareth is obviously still in the job, but I do think they're trying to keep that stability and that continuity and build from that. So I don't think we can write them off. I'm going to be really honest because I've said it in the private chat. I've not actually done my 12, so I'm just throwing in bits and bobs where I feel like I can actually add a little bit of something, but I don't think we can write City off completely. That was my honesty minute.
I mean, Mel's got Arsenal down there.
Jesus.
I mean, I have City in 3rd for me. I think I toyed between the top 5 quite a lot, and me and my editors actually spent quite a lot of time because we all disagreed on what we were going to put it as, and at the end of the day, it's my call, it's my piece, it's my byline. So I made the decision, but we was facing a lot of arguments because I personally worry about United, and the only reason I was toying between putting United in 4th and 5th was simply because I do think if they get past PSG, they are going to have to sacrifice positioning in the league for Champions League, because we've heard every manager who's in the Champions League speak about how much of a toll playing in the Champions League takes out of players, out of squad depth, out of rotation. It's travel, it's all of this stuff. And I do think that if they get past PSG, which, and I will say this now, I am supporting United to get past PSG for the sake of English football in the Champions League, because if they don't, the coefficient is so badly messed up that England could literally lose their 3rd place spot in Europe because of how badly City did last season, how badly Arsenal have done this season. And if Chelsea and United don't do well, they could legitimately lose the coefficient ranking they've got. So we're supporting United for that. But for that, I do think then they could lose out on the WSL because of that. So, but at the moment, I have got Villa in 5th, United in 4th, and City in 3rd.
See, I was listening to a Twitter space the other day, and somebody had United in like 7th. I was like, "Are you having a laugh? Like, come on." I don't know. Obviously, you'll see where I've put United in the 2nd, but yeah, I mean, someone's just said United 6th. I mean, really? No, come on. Top 3 is a minimum, I think, for us. Well, certainly target-wise, it needs to be anyway. But Nancy, obviously, I'll come back to yourself because I know you've got to jump in just a second. So I'll just ask you straight off who your top 3, 4 is. And also if you want to shout out some stuff as well before you hop off, because there was a question about when your next vlog is as well on that one.
Did you not hear my honesty minute when I said I haven't thought about it? I'm in my coffee connoisseur headspace. You know what? Someone said United 1st, City 2nd, Chelsea 3rd, Arsenal 4th. I can't see that, Vic. I can't see that happening, to be honest. I think Chelsea are going to be top hitters again for 1st place. Honestly, the amount of players they've brought in. Yeah, I do want to see like the back end of the season. I want to see the competition, and I don't want it to be a straight through. We know who's winning it, because it's better for football, isn't it? It's better for the league. But yeah, I can't see United being 1st. Sorry, Vic. Sorry, Connor.
Shocking.
But yeah, I think Villa 5th, I'd say, maybe. Villa, yeah, I think. I don't know. I need to assess from the first game. I think that's the best way to do it. It gives you a bit of a mark. But yeah, that's what I'm going to leave with, because I'm just sitting on the fence and stressing at the moment. You can see it in my face. I keep touching my face and doing all of this. But yeah, I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much for having me. I think I'm going to vlog my weekend, because I've got an exciting weekend with the opening.
Which game are you at, by the way? Have you decided yet?
Yeah, I'm going to Aston Villa versus United.
Go on.
And then I'm driving down to Chelsea versus Tottenham.
Yeah, two good games on that front. What we'll do to save you the stress of the predictions, speaking of, you need to get your predictions in for the weekend, by the way. But we'll get you on maybe in January or something like that, and see if you can predict the top 5 from there. We've got an idea of where the table is shaping up.
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks for having me. You lot, you're smashing it. Look forward to seeing you all throughout the season, and probably on this again. So, thanks, everyone.
Cheers, Nancy.
Yeah.
Speak to you in a bit.
Bye.
Right, who wants to follow up after that one, in terms of a top 4? In terms of what order you've got your teams in?
I think what Emily said, right near the start, if Arsenal, don't win the league with what we've got this season, I mean, obviously I don't agree with her saying we won't be one of the bigger clubs, but yeah, I'm backing us. I'm backing us to win it. And then I've got Chelsea 2nd, United in 3rd, and then obviously I think we've both got Villa 4th, Connor, and with City in 5th. I just think, obviously, yeah, we've not got Champions League. Yes, we've got the gaps in the defence, but I think with the attacking talent that we have, I think, the rotation that we can do, and hopefully that Jonas will do, will be crazy. And, I think it will be one of those, like it was at the end of the 21-22 season, where Chelsea were playing Man U, and Man U went ahead twice, and I thought Arsenal were winning the league, and then Chelsea went on and won that final game. I just hope it's, as close as it was that season, but obviously going in Arsenal's direction and not Chelsea's.
I think that's a fair. I think just very quickly, Emily, before Robin yourself jump in, I think we said on Monday's show from a United point of view, if we don't win the league, we want to see another records points tally to win it. I think because obviously that for us that'll be progression again. Obviously pushing on from points tally last season that we got. So whoever wins it for me as a United fan, if it's not us, I want it to be another tally because it means we've pushed that team so far again to reach a new one. But I'm assuming, Rob, you've got Chelsea in first. So have I, to be fair. I've got Chelsea, United, Arsenal in that order. So,
yeah, I've got Chelsea. I can't believe people are writing off City so easily. With Bunny in there, with Hemp and Kelly in there, they've got an attack that can trouble anyone. Defensively, I think they're a little bit suspect, but I think they were starting to show patterns, and the return of Leia Alexandria will be huge for them. And they've got Hasegawa in the midfield, who I think is phenomenal and still doesn't get the level of respect that she deserves as a player. I would put her in one of my top 5 midfielders in the league because of the level of player she is. They also have no European football. I think they'll probably just sack off the Conti Cup because, in all honesty, I think they will be prioritising on getting back into the Champions League. And I have them finishing second for that reason. I have Villa finishing in 5th because I think Villa will have a year of good results, but still being off, because I think people are underestimating what the gap still is between, I think, the top 4 and the rest. It did take United a little while to bridge that as well. As for 3rd and 4th, I'm going to open it up to you as the Arsenal and the Manchester United representative. Make an argument why you should be in 3rd. I'll give you 30 seconds. Meg, you can go first.
I think purely because we took Russo off them. That's me done. Yeah, that's why.
That's helping us out, not you. I don't know what you're on about. Well, there's my counter argument. They took Russo off us, so that means we're a better side.
I must admit, I'm surprised to see a lot of some of the Arsenal fans being very bullish about Alessia Russo, because I think Russo's a phenomenal forward, and I've said this before. I think she's a great footballer and a really good forward, but I don't think she's a clinical forward. And she's only got, I think, 10 goals. She consistently gets 10 goals, but I think if you're looking for a player to really kick on, this will be the big step for her. Is now she's turning, I think, 25. You're no longer talking about her as a young kid. You need to give her now the respect and say she's a player. She's going to be approaching, in theory, the end of her young age. She's approaching her prime in the next sort of maybe 3 years. In 3 years' time, you'd expect her to be in her prime around 28. You've got to start seeing her really kicking on. And from an Arsenal point of view, I don't think they can afford, especially if it takes Mead and Miedemar a while to come back from their ACLs, because I think that's fair enough. I don't expect them to suddenly be back to their amazing levels. And I think they will get there, but it'll take time. As a result of that, there's pressure on the likes of Russo and, Caitlin Ford, Blackstenius, Lacasse at the start of the season to really hit the ground running. And then from a United point of view, I think, again, you've got a similar one on Jayce Ferreira, of that you're really looking to Jayce to score the goals, because I think other than, obviously it'd be really interesting to see how Miyazawa does. I think if she plays up front, because she had such a good goal scoring record in the World Cup. But when you actually look at a club goal scoring record, it doesn't necessarily correlate to it. And that may be due to the fact she's playing deeper. It's hard to find footage of the Japanese league, I'll be very, very honest. But it'll be really interesting, because I think if that, gels well, then United could be a real force, and I think defensively they'll be strong. The big question mark for me about United is how much behind the scenes the Earp stuff will have affected them on a sort of, behind the scenes situation. Obviously, I think it's fair to say she wanted to go. She didn't get to go. Obviously, Fallon has come in, but don't know how long it's going to take her, especially if she comes in and maybe makes a couple of mistakes or something. Then you've got a real question of, do you bring Earps back in even though she wants to go? I know people saying she, that sort of, that she's been sort of eager to go, and it's obviously still going to refocus, but ultimately this does affect players. I remember a few years ago when it happened at Chelsea with Ramona Bachmann, And, it was well known in the summer Bachmann wanted to go. She didn't get to go until January. And it caused a lot of friction in the first half of the season. And eventually letting her go actually, freed up the dressing room.
And go on, Emily, bring us home on the predictions. You can have United first, aren't you? Come on. It's United first, Arsenal second. On anybody. Who have you got?
I would, in the near future, not this season, tip United to top the league. I still think they're playing catch up, and I still think United are promising, but I think this season isn't necessarily about winning the league. They were really close last season, but I think it's sustaining that and maintaining that, like bringing in the new signings and really embedding them into the team and really pushing for that to be a consistent top runner. Saying that, I again go back to my earlier point. I think Champions League, if they get past PSG, they're going to really struggle to compete in both WSL and Champions League because it is such a difficult task. And I think I have had every manager that I've ever spoken to in the Champions League across England and Europe say how difficult it really is to manage the travel, the squad depth, the injuries, the fatigue, all of that. And I do think United are not in a position right now that they can equally tackle Champions League and the WSL in top form. That's simply just my opinion. If it comes back that they win the WSL and they win Champions League, then do you know what? I'll buy everyone around. Don't clip that up, and no one quote me on that because I won't. But in general, I think for me the toss up between top one is Arsenal-Chelsea, and I say that simply because I think if you don't have Arsenal in contention, and if Arsenal aren't in contention for title, then they really are, for me, no longer a top-rated side in Europe. Because if you don't have the Champions League and you're not even vying for the WSL title, I think that's a really big plot fall in a club that has so much history that should be, singing from the rooftops about how amazing they are. I don't like that. But I've said Arsenal should win. And I've put in my prediction. I think Arsenal will tip it. And I say that also because I was sat in the press conference with Emma Hayes when she lost to Barcelona and she was crying. And that's the one thing Emma Hayes hasn't got is Champions League. It's the one thing she wants so badly. I think she's going to throw everything into the Champions League this season. I think she's got the squad depth to still win the WSL and the Champions League. But I think the focus right now for her is going to be on getting that Champions League. And I think if the WSL comes as a sacrifice, that's where she would rather win the Champions League and have won it all with Chelsea than not put out her front foot at the Champions League, but win the WSL. That's just my opinion, and that's just how I take it. But I do think, for me, it should, the way everything is planning out, it should be Arsenal, Chelsea, City, United. And that's with me expecting United to get past PSG and expecting Chelsea to really go far in the Champions League, because I have got high expectations for the both of them because I think they're good teams. But that's just how I see it. We'll see. I might be wrong, and I'm more than happy to be wrong. But from before, we'll talk again in January, and we'll see how the next 4 or 5 months play out, and then we'll see if I'm wrong. But that's what I say at the moment.
See, I would, like I said at the start, I just want anyone but Chelsea winning. But also, I think from a United point of view, I will fully take it's just scrapping for third, but winning a trophy and getting to the Champions League groups. I'm not gonna lie, I just want a repeat of the last season's FA Cup final and actually beat Chelsea at Wembley, because the day was very good. That feeling was bloody horrible. So I want us to go to Wembley again and flip that result.
I reckon I also recommend everyone, if you haven't seen the United documentary, you can see Connor's reaction at the end of it. It is honestly worth the time alone watching that. If I could print it out and send it to you in a print, Connor, I would. Yeah, it's that sort of thing.
See all my emotions throughout that game. The camera's not fully on me. You just see me in the background celebrating the goal and offside. Then the anger towards the end, we're missing all the chances, and then the next to tears right at the end as well, which is horrible. So hopefully we get to go to Wembley again and win it. It's all the content. I'll just take a trophy, to be honest. I want to see this United so win something, and it's not going to be the Champions League. I'm pretty confident of that. So we'll see. But yeah, as we said, it's predictions. We did this last year and we were all wrong. So you got to take what we say with I think Rob was right with Chelsea first, but I think that's probably the safest bet anyone can go for. It's just saying Chelsea are going to win the league. So.
I got Chelsea winning the league, and I also said about City not getting Champions League football. So
Oh yeah, you did. To be fair,
I will
I
claim
watched
those
that.
ones. And at the time, you had City finishing even lower.
So we'll see how it goes. But it's going to be a good season. As I said, starts on Sunday at Villa Park, which is going to be great. And on that, actually, United have, I think I tweeted earlier, United sold out that away, and it's 3,000 of us at Villa Park, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. So obviously, if you see us there, come and say hello on that one. Right, we'll go around the house and get you to shout what you're doing, obviously, because I'm sure you've got plenty of stuff coming up for each of you busy people as we get into the WSL season. So, Emily, I'll start with yourself. Where can people, obviously your Twitter at is on screen there, but if people want to find more of your work and things like that, where can people do all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Yeah, for me, I've got quite a lot in the works. Obviously, I'm with 90 Min still quite a lot. So written and production-wise, 90 Min is kind of my home. But I have got some other really exciting things that will be coming next week with other outlets that I'm working with. I don't want to say it. I was going to wait and drop it when the byline drops and be like, surprise, but...
We just need the eyes emoji right now. Just put it on the screen.
It is a bit of eyes emoji. It was quite exciting. But come Monday, I will have a very exciting byline in a very exciting newspaper, which is very exciting. I said that 3 times.
Because it is. It's very exciting. It is. So make sure you obviously follow Emily to that. And I'm sure you'll see one of us retweeting on Monday on that one, because it is really exciting and deserved as well. So make sure you check Emily out on that one. Rob, for yourself, obviously people should know you by now. You've changed your Twitter app though from the last time you were on, so you are on mute though. So you've not mastered the unmuting quite yet.
Yeah, I'd still learn to master that. No, I changed the Twitter app purely due to in the transfer window I was getting bored of being tagged and things are being asked, is this happening, for stuff that had absolutely no correlation or relevance to me. The most weird one was I got asked about a transfer to do with Sporting Club to Portugal and about them signing a player from, I want to say, Uruguay. I know nothing about Sporting Club de Portugal or indeed about Uruguayan players coming in, despite the fact I do get the odd South American transfer right. No, but you can also find my work now at also with Atta Football and also at DAZN, who I excitingly have been acquired by the fact they've acquired Atta. And there's lots of really exciting stuff going on there. And if you want some time this weekend and you want to watch the other European leagues, most of them are now live on DAZN, and we have a lot of matches this weekend. So if you want to get a flavour of what PSG are up to, then I believe we are showing the PSG game. So if you want to, go see Katoto score a hat-trick and, absolutely terrify you, then go ahead.
So I was just replying to Vic in the comments. She hates the eyes emoji, hence why she put no, we don't. So I've just thought I might just pin that on screen just for the remainder of this show, just for you, Vic. But Meg, for yourself, where your Twitter at is on screen. I'll take the comment off so people can see it. But what are you up to going into this season? Obviously, I know you'll be following Arsenal, but where can people find you and any of your work there?
Yeah, obviously, I'm kind of Twitter's. It's a weird. It's not an addiction, but I just love being I love going on Twitter, seeing what people say, and I love giving my opinions as well. It's a bit of a weird time at the minute. I'm on the job hunt for anything, so that's it's a bit of a strange time. But now I'm looking forward to a double header on Sunday at Stamford Bridge and then the Emirates. That'll be a kind of manic day, but I'm just looking forward to the season starting again. It's obviously after the World Cup and obviously being out in Australia, it was such an amazing summer, and then coming back, it's like you just want the WSL to kind of get up and running again. It's a bit of a weird time in between, but obviously with the the additional international breaks and all that's been going on with that, it's been a bit crazy. But no, yeah, find everything I do on Twitter. I kind of put everything out there.
I hope, just by the way, you go to the Emirates first. I'm pretty sure Arsenal kick off at 2 and
yeah,
Chelsea
that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
It's okay. Mate. We all know, Meg, that you're a closet Chelsea fan. We know, you've had the admiration for the club, and it's okay.
I couldn't hate a team more if I tried in the women's game. Honestly,
jealousy is a terrible, terrible thing.
Oh dear, it's going to be a good season anyway. So we will wrap it up there. Obviously, make sure you're liking the video, subscribing, and follow us at allforunitedvids on Twitter. We'll be back literally in 24 hours' time, talking obviously Aston Villa. Freya and Lindsay are back onto that one to tell us how Aston Villa are going to beat United, and me and Barry obviously be backing up United and telling them how we're going to beat them as well. It's going to be a tough one because obviously we struggled a little bit Villa away last season. So hopefully I wouldn't mind that again, but maybe not. It's not good for my heart rate going so late into the game as we did last year or whatever, the Bescott Stadium, whatever it's called. Obviously, it's been the pinned thing. It's in the description. Obviously, if you would like to vote for us for the FCA nomination, obviously we did make the finalist on that one. It's in the description, so you can follow that. It's relatively easy. Literally go to the Instagram thing and just tag us. It's literally it. Or you go to the website and vote for us on there. Yeah, we shall wrap it up there. Then make sure you're following all these guys. It's been another fantastic show, and we shall see you guys in about 24 hours.